Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today it's Detox's base takes with the Good Enough MMO soft release, Star Citizen 1.0. This follows the letter of the chairman, and to be honest, I think Detox, like I mentioned in the last react I did to his, he is extremely based with his takes, and you can tell when a content creator's played other games, and Detox is like absolutely in that realm. So you can lean on his content for real close to the ground and wider game experience that I think is actually really lacking from most content creators when it comes to this game. A lot of people cover the development, but they don't have a history of playing like online MMOs and stuff like that. Usually their history is Star Trek and TV shows. So it's just refreshing to get what I would consider a gamer. I only just noticed the skeleton in the background saying held the line. Yo, I've never noticed that until now. I know I watch his stream all the time. Yo, yo, that is the best thing I've seen. Oh, that is so good. But you know, Star Wars Galaxies in the background, for example, like I used to run that game back in the day with the group that I used to run. So yeah, you know, just good takes, good guy. Appreciate his content. And I'm assuming this is to talk about the 1.0 announcement. So, you know, I'm very skeptical because back when in 2018, when I was playing the game, you know, they talked about 100 systems when release came. Now it looks like we might be settling for 2. So let's see. I'm looking forward to this, and let's get into it.
Last week, we had a brand new letter from the chairman, a rare update from CIG's CEO, Chris Roberts himself, and other big players at the company like Benoit and Richard Tyra, who've shared their gratitude and hopes for the future of Star Citizen.
Yeah, if I could ever get a CIG developer on a podcast, it'd be Rich Tyra. I think like he's got real base takes too. Anything that I hear coming out of him when it comes to development of the game, just a big fan of.
Development on the eve of completing some major development milestones. It was in this post that Chris Roberts and the team briefly touched on their plans to begin working on a roadmap and vision for a 1.0 release. Now, many of us have been following this game for a literal decade at this point. Lord knows it's been one hell of a ride.
I've been up to 7 years now, so yeah, it's getting ridiculous. But they need to, like, you know, I should just let this video cook, but I do hope that they're gonna really start pumping out systems that are like modular, you know, like stars, moons, planets. Like even if they're mostly uninhabited, like give us the freedom and extend the length and width of the sandbox, in my opinion.
So far, bit long though. We've sadly lost and gained many along the way, but my friends, while we're definitely closer and I couldn't be more excited for the future of Star Citizen, we're not there yet, and I can't help but feel this sowing of the 1.0 seed is a little premature. Star Citizen 1.0 is what we consider the...
It's so crazy because usually my take would be like, let's just wrap things up. Let's get things out the door. And to be honest, it'd be nice to not be able to call it an alpha anymore. And for that debate and those arguments to not even be possible. But I'm kind of on the same side as Detox here. Like 1.0 crept up way too quick, and I just hope it's not some sort of like soft get out of jail free card. Like I want like systems like I mentioned, like star systems, moons, planets, even if they're mostly uninhabited, but like really ready for them to keep ramping it up, right? Like, and for this to grow, because if every system is going to take the same amount of effort as, for example, Pyro, then it'll be 2-3 years before we get another system, right? So it's like, I hope that the expectation of every star system isn't Pyro, and I hope that the game is going to be more than Terra, Pyro, Stanton. I hope it gets bigger, like, really.
features and content.
And I know people like, yes, there's all these systems planned, that of course, but, you know, are they really?
Set to represent commercial release. This means that the game is welcoming to new players, stable and polished, with enough gameplay and content to engage players continuously. In other words, it is no longer alpha or early access. Now that's a funny way of saying feature complete. To me, this sounds like an early Star Citizen soft release is now entirely possible, with early doing a lot of lifting here. And in reality, this has been on the cards for years. So in light of this new and shiny carrot on a stick, what should a 1.0 release look like? What does CIG stand to gain, and will it have been worth the wait?
Anyway, I can't wait to see what you guys think of it.
So what is a soft release? Star Citizen would essentially release with a certain standard and set of features enough to provide a solid base or foundation for the game that can be built upon during a long, fruitful post-release period. The biggest difference for us, the current player base, would be player progress. After a soft release, progress would be permanent. No more wipes.
Oh, it's so refreshing to hear this.
But Detox, CIG has been enjoying continued financial success during its alpha development period. Why would they soft release after all this time? I don't want to dive too deeply into this topic, but in my opinion, there could be a few reasons. Number one, after a 1.0 release, the game is immediately more marketable, allowing for more effective marketing campaigns, including traditional advertising, leading to increased sales and revenue for the game and its continued and growing development demands. With Squadron 42 nearing completion, being able to shift into a Star Citizen marketing phase not long after seems like a logical progression. A successful 1.0 release could provide a more stable financial foundation of the development studio. This stability could allow the team to continue to expand, invest in additional resources, and continue supporting and expanding the game in the long term without relying on the constant sort of egregious ship sales and events we've been seeing, particularly more recently. Number three.
Yo, that's a big one. I was thinking that the last like 30 seconds, but I was letting him cook. Are they still gonna sell ships? Because if the game releases and they're still selling ships, then what? Is that it? Is that are we playing NFT Citizen? It's funny because back in the day, like I'm talking like 2018, 2019, the entire conversation or justification to the selling of ships was we won't have to do it when it's released. It's just to get the game built. Well, if that's the case, does that mean it's going to stop? Because it feels like it's too late now, right? Like this is what's paying for 1,000 employees and a studio in the I forgot where it is, but you know, like all these studios all around the world. It's the ship sales that are paying for that. So are they willing to walk away from that? Doubt it. And that's okay. Like I'm understanding of that, but I want the game to start feeling like a game rather than an NFT theme park. And if Star Citizen 1.0 is what's going to get us there, then, you know, so be it. I just hope that the sandbox grows more, because I don't think 3-4 systems are going to be enough. I mean, we have to start seriously thinking about what is player bases and base rating going to look like in the systems we have so far. So it's like, is that enough? Like, is there enough landscape to, you know, have these kind of base attack, base rating, dropping bases and stuff like that? Do we have enough systems, moons, planets for that yet? I don't know. But yeah, it just depends on what the agenda is. Why? Is it to help combat refunds? Is it a legal thing? Is it to stop selling ships? Or what's the reasoning? You know, like we understand like what they need, what boxes they want to tick before they do start calling it that. And is it just marketing? But they do need to understand, I think, that with this release comes a lot of expectations that things are going to change. Going to get some answers to some really ugly questions, apparently. We'll see.
Transitioning to a 1.0 release could attract a broader audience of old and new players who may have been waiting for its alpha phase to end in order to play the game, providing better concurrency, data, and organic marketing through things like word of mouth. 4, a release could enhance the credibility of CIG with future partners, investors, and potential collaborators. It would show their ability to deliver on their vision and could open up new opportunities in the gaming industry, whatever that may be. The big downside, of course, is that CIG loses its plot armor, its impenetrable shield, its get out of jail free card, its alpha. So
No, I mentioned that. Yo, based as hell detox. Can always rely on him for that. There we go. Very well done, brother.
things would need to be pretty tight. So with this in mind, what could or what should Star Citizen's 1.0 soft release look like? Well, in order to picture what a 1.0 release could look like, we need to quickly touch on some of the game-defining features that are already arriving with the insanely stacked 3.23 and then later on version 4.0. 3.23 introduces a host of features and much-needed improvements to existing ones that still feel like a total dumpster fire prototype, aka the star map.
So this video was recorded about a month ago, so we've seen this. This got replaced, or is about to be replaced. So
with a new groundbreaking character customizer, we'll finally have a true AAA character creator screen, providing a much needed and improved first impression as new players and
I never cared about any of this.
Future MMO experience. Distribution centers will offer a huge range of gameplay options for multiple playstyles, including the introduction of cargo hauling contracts and local reputation rewards. We'll also get the introduction of Tier 0 engineering mode in Arena Commander, so we can begin testing and expanding on that over the next couple of years, no doubt. This being one of Star Citizen's pillar ship features. We'll be getting instanced hangars for item, ship, and resource management, alongside of Mobigla.
Where is he finding this music from?
Plus rework and much needed FPS and inventory improvements. The much awaited EVA rework will change and improve how we fly in EVA mode, and big updates to Reputation will help define players' interactions with the game's thousands of NPCs and important locations throughout Pyro and Stanton. Master Modes brings with it a total overhaul of the game's flight model and a new foundation for balancing flight, racing, and ship combat.
Thank
you can check out my views on Master Modes, which I'll link under the video and in the top right. After you
Did a react to this. It was a good video.
Core tech coming in 3.23, like the replication layer, will help to remove game-breaking loss of progress between sessions and crashes like 30Ks, and updates to volumetric clouds in the game engine will not only help the game look better, but run better as well at some point. On top of this, testers are already running server meshing trials of 200 to 400 players, which is a huge deal.
I played the recent player count test. I think I was on the server that had a cap of 600, I think it was. And man, it played really impressive, to be honest. We were just outside of Lawville. I could talk about this now, thanks to the Evacati rules uplifted. But yeah, I was super impressed with how well it played. Like, at least on the micro level, with the like minute by minute gameplay, like the spaceship combat was fine, is the point. So I'd have to get more time on that. I think they're doing some more testing soon, but it felt really good.
Server meshing obviously being an integral part of what will make Star Citizen a true MMO. Server meshing should help make the verse feel much more alive and eventually alleviate server stress, as multiple servers eventually share the load. Share the load. Now this leads us into version 4.0, which is currently penned as the patch to introduce the first new star system, Pyro, hopefully in unison with server meshing, enabling seamless travel and transition between jump gates, reliably connecting the two star systems we currently have, Stanton and Pyro. This could also be out sometime this year and is expected between summer and Q4, or rumored between summer and Q4. But as we all know, the only constant in game development is change.
So in 40 years from now, when you're surrounded by everything and everyone you hold dear, and they ask, what did
40
you
years.
do? You can look them in the eye and say,
oh, here we go.
I held the line. Men and women of the Second Fleet.
So with this year already promising to be a pretty insane year for Star Citizen with so many important features coming online, CIG needs a new carrot on a stick beyond 2024 and Squadron 42. With so much progress being made so quickly now that Squadron 42 and Star Citizen teams are consolidated, it's time to give backers something more to look forward to and once again start outlining the game's distant and not so distant future. From the letter, Chris mentions that he and Richard Tyra are working towards a vision to bring to life the intended, realized Star Citizen gameplay experience and that they've been working on this for the past few months, resulting in what they refer to as 1.0. He then goes on to say they look forward to sharing this vision and plan with us later this year. My guess is CitizenCon in Manchester. We've seen Chris's roadmaps come and go before, but could this be the one that finally sticks? Richard Tyra, now Senior Game Director, shared his intentions for moving us closer to a 1.0 release, and in my opinion, this is where he also begins subtly setting expectations for a soft release, but does touch on the fact that they will be heavily developing previously neglected and integral features like the economy and insurance in the near future. While these
Oh man, the economy. You guys know how much I harp on that. Like, we have without a doubt the worst economy in all of gaming history, and of course we do, because you buy ships with the US dollars. So, man, it's refreshing to hear that, but the work needed to start forever ago, man. Like, we needed an economy years and years ago. So, there needs to be so much change there. Like, so much change. Because it is in such a bad shape. As for the base building and crafting, yeah, sure. I just hope it's not like, you know, something like really small. Like, I hope the crafting experience in this game, or the mechanics, is like really in depth, really sophisticated, and there's like so much to craft. Weapon attachments, weapons, you know, ship components, all kinds of stuff. Along with the base building and like the base raiding mechanics. These are like obviously probably one of the most important mechanics to come, and I think what this game is going to be heavily judged on those. Like, if it's a really shallow base building or crafting system, then, you know, fail in my opinion. But Rich Tyra's been based so far, so be it.
teams will still be instrumental in shipping Squadron 42, they will now be focused on bringing all the existing features over to Star Citizen, as well as working on brand new features like base building and crafting to help round out the 1.0 experience. With every release going forward, the intention is to move ourselves closer to that end goal, so you should expect to see large updates quarterly with many changes to systems that have not been touched in a long time, like economy, insurance, etc., alongside a whole suite of quality of life improvements to things like inventory, missions, mobiGlas, etc., coupled with totally brand new features and content.
The big one I'm focused on is the economy and the insurance. The insurance being like an economy-based maintenance cost. So like, yeah, desperately want some attention there. We need to suffer a little bit. Like repair costs, refueling, rearming, reclaiming ships. It's just a number none of us care about because you could just wave it off. It doesn't mean anything because the economy is so stale. So really looking forward to those aspects of the game getting looked at.
So with all this in mind, if CIG is indeed aiming for a 1.0 soft release, what should it look like when we're finally playing for keeps? What features should 1.0 soft release launch with? Well, everyone has their own idea of what Star Citizen is.
Gosh, what's the answer to that question? Capital ships, base building. I'd probably want like player-owned, organization-owned stations. I know they haven't announced that, and anyone that is going to tell me in the comments they're not planning on doing that. Yeah, well, they weren't planning on doing base building either, so I don't really subscribe to that. But I would say, yeah, org bases, you know, organizations, stations, a suite of like high sec security systems, low sec and null security systems, like a wealth of systems. Because at the moment it's looking like what? Magnus is a jump point, so there's that. There is Stanton, obviously. There's Terra, Pyro, and then Levski was I forgot the system that was supposed to, Nyx, was it? So that's 5. I'm hoping for a lot more than 5, maybe quadruple that at least. But the thing is, like, that's the big one for me. Like, introduced like ghost systems, where there's barely any population, and like let the players, occupy it. Like call those null PvP security systems, and just like let the narrative completely unfold with the players. I worry that every system that comes out is going to be so overly developed that we're barely going to get any anytime soon. I remember when like Hursted and Art Cult were getting spin up, a lot of the conversation was not that it's modular, but that they could spin up these planets and moons so quickly now with the new tech they have. But I don't think we've seen that. Like, Pyro came in, but Pyro has taken its fair share of time. So I think what's concerning me is the speed of which they are developing systems. I expected them to be like, have these things on a factory line by now.
I can't really predict what Chris and Rich have got cooking for their upcoming 1.0 release roadmap, but I have a pretty good idea of what should be on there. In no particular order, if I had to settle for a 1.0 soft release, here is my conservative list of features that I feel would create a strong foundation and springboard for additional and iterative features after Star Citizen's 1.0 release. At least 5 systems: Stanton, Pyro, Nyx. The other 2 are up for debate, but we'll need at least 2 more large systems, in my opinion, to provide enough initial play space for base building, territory control.
Yeah, like I could be supportive of this. Like, I'd probably be more towards 10, but I'd settle for 5 for sure. I mean, as long as 1.0 isn't some soft finish line, and the plan is to still get us those 100 systems, right? But if we're looking at like each system from then on after 1.0 is considered like an expansion, then I'm going to be heavily disappointed. And, for example, them taking a year to develop. So 5 I'd say is a little low, but I wouldn't be asking for too much higher than that.
Control, org warfare, and diplomacy, providing adequate space for potentially thousands of playstyles and adventures. True repeatable exploration gameplay loops dictated by some element of procedural tech and RNG, which would then factor into the physicalized data gameplay loop that can be shared, stored, sold, and traded. This would include unique locations of wormholes, ore deposits, nebulas, shipwrecks, components. This element of gameplay is actually so integral to Star Citizen, and yet so unexplored, pun not intended. I couldn't even tell you what CIG's intentions are for this integral gameplay loop.
Neither could I. Like, what? Like, exploration's always been that, like, people are like, oh, like, I really can't wait for that. And it's like, well, what is it? Like, what are you referring to? Is it discovering like wildlife and plants and stuff and caves? Is that the exploration? Or are they talking like deep space scanning and asteroid belts and discovering systems? Because I think that's what they were talking about back in the day, right? Was that the exploration mechanics will be like discovering wormholes and possibly even systems? Like, is that still the goal? Or was that all just copium? I don't know.
Flyable capital ships with ship breaching and boarding, with the Legionnaire ready and available in order to facilitate anti-capital ship FPS gameplay and capture. Huge operation.
The Legionnaire being the boarding ship that's in the design phase, and flying capital ships make a lot of sense. I just worry about the economy here. Ships get that large. I just hope that they're not roaming around for free, right? I definitely want to see capital ships, but I want capital ships to be a rare, extreme event, not something that people just pull to do a fucking Ninetales mission, right? So yeah, like, capital ships inevitably were to be the most important, or one of the most important mechanics to come to the game, and we're yet to see them play well, right? Like the Idris event, for the most part, is a laggy mess. So how are they going to introduce capital ships, specifically when you start talking about capital ships in PvP against each other? You know, how are they going to get to that technology-wise? That's going to be really important. Large operational costs. He's about to cook on the economy. Thank God. Thank God, Detox. Well done.
Operational costs for larger ships like capitals in terms of durability, upkeep, fuel, bigger consequences for
massive consequences, massive upkeep, please.
death and ship loss, with much greater money sinks across the board, reintroduction of ship component loss and additional ship and component insurance, ranging from hull only to stock loadouts only to custom loadouts and components, with certain items or components being uninsurable to guarantee continued elements of risk. The ability
Yeah, dude, this is the problem is though, Detox, is whenever you mention this stuff, everybody goes, not in my Star Citizen, or they lean on the, it's an alpha, so I'm not ready for ship loss, I'm not ready to be able to lose in this game. Maybe, dude, maybe Uno Reverso, I actually desperately do want 1.0 to release, because then so too does all those arguments for why the game isn't what we want it to be yet. Like, I really want exactly what he's describing: upkeep costs, the ability to lose badly as well as, you know, win severely as well. You know, like both sides of the spectrum. We need to have loss in this game to make winning even feel good. So yeah, like insurance, losing ship components on death. I love these ideas. They're a bit brutal, but that's what keeps you playing, that's what makes winning in Star Citizen so much more enjoyable. So yeah, like absolutely, like this is, in my eyes, the most lacking thing from the last like 5 years that I've played. This is like, UEC has just always been a joke. It's always been a joke. We all ignore it. We all have so much of it. It's a non-issue. It means nothing. You cannot look at a player or his ship and think about how much UEC they have, because they probably bought it with the USD and it means nothing. So yeah, like all those things tie into the economy, and you guys know, like I'm so heavily disappointed in the current state of the economy, and I really wanted to improve. I did a whole video on thinking Tony Z's economy is really not looking like it's going to be fun at all. And I made a couple videos about how I just prefer straight up a player-driven economy. But those aspects which he's referring to in this video is so important for me. More important than any of the rest.
to crash land or survive ejection in atmosphere, either via reverse EVA thrusters, jetpacks, or parachutes, functional escape pods for multi-crew ships to ensure survivability, a basic implementation of base building, ownership, and PvP-based conquest mechanics with mineable, tradable, and lootable resources, and gameplay loops that contribute to base building, which should be a high-end loop and at certain levels, a major money and resource sink with the
Dude, and I remember speaking to Salty Mike about this. What if these bases are going to be sold on the store? You know, like, oh my gosh, it'd be such an issue, because then like people are going to expect they can't lose their bases, and the entire point of building sandcastles and knocking over sandcastles is for that to exactly happen. So if they put these on the store, oh, it's going to be so bad. I'll be so disappointed. Like, truly. Was really impressed when Todd Pappy's no longer with the company announced the base building, but I'm concerned. I got to cover this on the podcast I do with Mike for sure.
Possibility to also make lots of money and resources in the form of refining, drilling, and maybe some manufacturing as well. Player-built homes and decorations, in-game reputation rewards in the form of ships, components, gear, and weapons, and reputation
content gates. I like that, content gates. So like, yeah, actual reputation progression.
Gating, like being able to access certain missions, stations, and areas of the game with the right reputation. A fully reworked and engaging bounty hunting system that also works with AI subsumption for more engaging player and PvE bounty hunting, including non-lethal capture. The ability to find, collect, and sell fuel
God, it's hard to imagine non-lethal capture in a PvP game. Like, imagine the griefing. Jeez.
ships like the Starfarer, a strong baseline of master modes finished and implemented that has established at least 2 to 3 viable and balanced ships across every role and archetype, fleshed out carrier ship gameplay, and the ability for multiple players to live aboard a large carrier or capital class ship for extended periods of time, a range of challenging and believable NPCs across all gameplay loops.
The carrier life, I notice it's just disappeared off his list, but the carrier life, meaning like an organization owns a ship capital and then it's not dependent on one player calling it from a pad every time, but players able to live on it like it's a moving base. Heavily interesting. I really like the sound of that. I wonder if that's the plan, or if it's going to be, you know, you call out your capital ships and ship terminals, and then when you log off, they vanish in the thin air like before. Challenging NPCs, yeah, absolutely too. I definitely want like raid style, and they already announced this in the UGFs, but difficult AI with like raids and raid bosses is coming. Looking forward to that. Because despite me being, you know, the PvP sweaty degenerate that I am, I actually do want like challenging PvE as well, for sure.
Working in conjunction with subsumption, a dynamic economy influencing prices, scarcity, supply and demand of items in the universe, from weapons to components to commodities, which would also be influenced by observable NPCs and in-game actions, and to a lesser extent, players too. This element of the game is integral to keeping the universe fresh and engaging, with small economic changes having large implications on the verse that change the way players behave and engage with the game, right down to the resources that are worth acquiring to the areas that are worth visiting. High value and worthwhile player trading from a hull A up to a hull C, with appropriate risk versus reward, with multiple transport companies for reputation building with trade-specific rewards,
Gosh, he's
unlocks,
cooking.
and contracts. Dynamic events like Xenothreat and Jumptown, working truly dynamically, influenced by player and NPC actions, not manually triggered by CIG,
Yes.
to facilitate these stale marketing events. Player contracts and player-based...
Yes, dude. I can't stand this, like, feeling like I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons and there's a CIG dungeon master that is, and what he explained is perfect. They're doing it for marketing and marketing alone at this point. It's like, oh, they're getting rowdy, give them a Xenothreat. Oh, we need to make some money, cook a Xenothreat and pair it with these ship sales. Like, I'm so over it. Every time we fight back Xeno, nothing happens because of it. Nothing happened because we won it or lost it. Same with like Orison. How many times can Orison get sieged by Ninetales? You know, until we lose Orison, for example. Like the events are just events. There's nothing special, dynamic about them. They're just PvE system events that bring you out of the immersion. Like, I'm not a big fan of it. They don't change the narrative or the story in any way, whether they go left or right, whatever the results be. So I'm ready to move on to a star system that probably doesn't have dynamic events, because yeah, I think they're a bit dorky. Maybe if like the difficulty for PvE went up and then it became like a open dungeon kind of thing, like for example Siege or whatever, like if it was just a PvE event to grind a reputation and get gear, so be it. But yeah, like I'm not a big fan of those. Play-to-player contract system, yeah, that's huge. Huge. That's a massive one. Like, you know, perhaps hiring a trade organization to help with the logistics of your org, migrating from one system to another, one moon to another, one base built to another. Love this stuff. You know, space Ubers, bounty hunting, security contracts, all that jazz. Love this. Let the players make deals with the players, you know, like that way the PvP community needs to rely on the PvE community for logistics, for stuff like this. Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Rating system for offering player-to-player services, integral to the sandbox and longevity of the game and the long-term experience. Character-based criminal reputation that exists outside of simply clearing your crime stat for longer-term consequences of misconduct and player behavior, creating more meaningful differences between lawful, unlawful, and neutral-minded players. A responsive and intuitive NPC security system to help regulate secure space in conjunction with a more robust law system. A functioning org and diplomacy system for declarations of war, alliance.
So long-form character reputation, sure. I'm sure our reputation for our org will be really terrible, criminal ridden and stuff like that. But yeah, supportive of that. Formidable NPC security, absolutely. Specifically in the high security systems to protect the players that aren't interested so much in PvP. Not to make them immune, but for the odds to be stacked in their favor, absolutely. Org system, here we go. Desperately need this. This was supposed to be in for years. Cook on.
Org banks and shared control of bases and base building.
There we go.
Night vision. At least one or two elements of
Night vision.
living interactable fauna per
God, look,
planet
it keeps going. This is banging these out.
Either by providing useful resources for manufacturing, or contracts to incentivize hunting and interacting with them, the VIP and transport mission gameplay loops for NPCs and players, factoring into positive or negative-based reputation, including negative-based VIP transport missions for things like gang leaders or underworld bosses.
How's it not running out of breath?
New and old hero-style mission givers with meaningful and interesting quest chains that offer tangible, reputation-based rewards across all major planetary landing zones and systems. Incentivized ground vehicle gameplay.
Okay. So Detox, for those who don't know, like he plays his organization is very gosh, I'm stumped for words today. But they play, FPS, logistics, boarding, dropship, PvP, space, capital ships, the entire suite, right? So I know he's extremely passionate about ground vehicles and the ground gameplay, to which I commend him for, because not a lot of content creators are fighting for those gameplay loops. But yeah, like he's absolutely right here. Some of these, man, I'm glad Detox isn't in charge. Like VIP transport gameplay, long form character progression, fauna and stuff. Like he's getting into, if he was at the head of the company sitting on the throne, man, we wouldn't have Star Citizen 1.0 for another 10 years. But a lot of these are based.
I think that might be all I have for now. There are many features and details I've not included, and probably some I've unintentionally missed, but I think this list represents a Star Citizen I'd play with some major initial longevity, with the expectation of consistent additions of content, systems, CIG events, and features to the game over many years to come. I think we're a good few years off this list yet, but I'm very interested to see what Chris and the team have cooked up for their internal roadmap that they'll no doubt reveal to us at this year's Manchester CitizenCon, if not before. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video. I always try to read and respond to as many messages as I can, and I look forward to your insights. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I've been enjoying covering some of the important news that's coming out of CIG lately, but I'm also eager to get back to some fresh narrative and gameplay-driven content for you guys once we get 3.23 in our hands, as I'm pretty much done with the current live build these days. Exciting!
Me too, man. Me too.
The times are ahead, nonetheless. Special thanks, as always, to my community and my Me Team members for your continued generosity and support. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to support me a little further and help me continue creating content, you can check out my Fourth Wall member section, or even pick up some high-quality merch or guaranteed sexiness. See you in the next one, everybody.
Hell yeah, Detox. Based is all hell. I really like this emphasis on the economy and maintenance upkeep, the capital ship gameplay, the variety, like FPS, ground vehicles, boarding, all that jazz. Some of the minor details I'm not that stressed on when it comes to the release of 1.0, like bounty hunting, fauna, hunting, you know, like wildlife and stuff like those, you know, they're just not important to me. I understand they're important to some people, but he hit the nail on the head with a lot of those. Holy moly, what a video that ended up being. I thought he was just gonna like kind of complain about what we're lacking already, but no, like he was actually pretty positive about this. That's the question, right? Is like, what does this 1.0 symbolize? You know, is this going to forever be a US dollars for spaceships game? Like, are we really playing soft Star Atlas here? You know, what's going to happen to the economy? How are they going to navigate around the elephant in the room that is everybody spent USD to get everything and to shortcut everything? What's progression going to finally look like? Base building? Is that going to be on the store? You know, there's a lot of questions that 1.0 needs to answer, and I'm surprised that they're even willing to do it. And I'm very curious as to what the reasoning to do so is. Yeah. But yeah, awesome video, Detox. What do you guys think? How would you feel if base building ends up on the store? Oh man, I haven't even thought of that. Oh gosh, that's scary. Well, here's to hoping the game becomes more like a game. And I look forward to 1.0's release for sure. I look forward to more players getting involved in the game, the population growing, the game becoming more mainstream, and the expectation being that it's a polished game that is getting built upon instead of an alpha, beta stuck project the entire time. So maybe I shouldn't be complaining. Maybe this is them giving us what we expected and I need to shut up and let them cook. Yeah, it's an interesting time, man. Star Citizen's really getting its act together. It's exciting. Anyways, guys, I appreciate it. Detox, appreciate you. Great video. I'll catch you guys in the next one, yeah? GG's. Give me the 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the 1, 2, 3. Peace.